I want to hear cannons. Three-step drop, throws on the end zone. Caught ball, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans reaches up with one hand and grabs it in.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
We don't even keep score. We just run that up and leave.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up the middle. Heads intercepted at the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25. 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
So week number 2 has our beloved Chicago Bears traveling down to Tampa to take on the Bucs, where it's going to be 800 degrees, 10,000% humidity. So I'm sure that's probably why the Bears are going to wear the orange helmets and the orange jerseys so as to not have to wear the dark colors that I'm sure the home team would force us to wear. But here to help us preview this very interesting week 2 matchup from the Cannon Fire Podcast, it is Rhett Matthew.
Pleasure to be back, Larry. Internet issues be damned. We're going to make this podcast happen, but always good to be back and talk a ball with you.
Yeah, so let's talk about week 1 for your Buccaneers. Looking at it, I was in and out on the game on Sunday as I was kind of visually masturbating over the 8 games that were available to me during the 12 o'clock hour and, in and out on it. And I wasn't expecting the Vikings to blow out Tampa Bay, but I was surprised with how scrappy and how tough the Buccaneers hung in there throughout the game. And I think it was a surprise to a lot of people. The Vikings, coming off the big year that they had last year, were favorites to win this one. And while my guys were dominated thoroughly at home in an embarrassing loss to Green Bay, you guys are considered the upset, beating the formerly 13-4 Vikings on the road.
Yeah, I'm more so surprised by where the offense was week 1. I mean, we knew Dave Canales coming in was going to have a lot of hype as the new offensive coordinator, old QB coach from Seattle. People credit him for making Geno Smith what he was last season, and that ended up in a contract extension with Seattle, so they're feeling good about that. But, he's a first-time play caller, new quarterback. Baker Mayfield had to come in and learn the system as well. There's a lot of leftover pieces from the Tom Brady era. Obviously, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, still on the team, but a lot of young pieces. The tight end group, one of the youngest in the NFL. And for the Buccaneers offense week 1, I knew they weren't going to be scoring over 30 points. I definitely didn't think they were going to be as bad as they were in the first half of that game, but luckily they had the defense, which I have been raving about for the last couple of months. They played so well in that first half. They kept the Bucs in the game, and they gave the offense time to get their feet wet. Baker got more comfortable in the pocket as the game went on. Brian Flores was really bringing the heat on all the blitzes in that first half, and it showed. They made some adjustments in the second half and ultimately came around. And part of what they had to do is just start throwing the ball to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You start putting the ball in the hands of your playmakers, and plays will be made. But I like a lot of what I saw. Again, there's some areas that they have to get better. And I think the inexperience factor is going to be on full effect over the next 4 to 5 weeks for this football team. But the defense is playing great, picking up right where they left off in 2022. And the offense, they showed us something they can build on. So as far as where the Bucs are after week 1, I'm cautiously optimistic because I don't want to overreact, but I am pleasantly surprised with where they are on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and it was interesting when I went back and I was looking at like team stats and how the game all boiled down. Unless I'm missing something, the Vikings won this game everywhere and except for 2 places. Number 1, the turnover battle, and number 2, the scoreboard, which is the most important place because Kirk Cousins threw for over 300 yards. Justin Jefferson had a ton of catches, ton of yards. The rookie Addison scored a touchdown in this. Aside from having trouble running the football, the Vikings efficient enough on offense and statistically, were very productive on offense, but couldn't manage to get things finished and apparently couldn't stop turning the ball over.
Yeah, that discrepancy in the box score is going to stick out to a lot of people. Over 120 yards of total offense between these two. I think the Bucs only finished with 240, 260, something like that. And it was 369 for the Vikings. So when you look at that, you look at the success that they had throwing to Justin Jefferson, who finishes with a handful of catches and a $150 receiving on the day. You would think they probably would have beat the Bucs by more than 3 points or even a touchdown at that point. But again, talking about the defense in that first half, keeping Tampa Bay in that game, I mean, that's exactly what they needed. You know, if you can force any team to get 3 turnovers in the first half, you're going to have a pretty good chance to hang on to that game. And even then, with the lack of production, the Bucs were just keeping points off of the board. And there were a lot of pivotal moments in that game where it felt like the Bucs defense had to bend but not break. You know, a couple of goal line stops. They turned a touchdown into 3 points for Minnesota on one possession. And then to end the first half, the Christian Izien interception from the nickel cornerback spot, you know, that completely eliminates a touchdown, or it completely eliminates points. And if the Vikings, you know, they were tearing up that zone coverage that entire first half of the game. If the Vikings get the shot that they needed on that drive and settle for 3 points, we're going to overtime because the Bucs only beat them by 3, 20-17, your final score. So again, you know, the building blocks being put together on offense has a little bit more time to come together because of how well the defense has played. But yeah, like you said, as far as the defensive approach, they weren't going to stop Justin Jefferson. They were just going to have to focus on slowing down some of the guys around him. So yeah, I mean, they absolutely got gashed in that first half, and the zone coverage has to be better if they're going to continue to play zone. The Bucs have physical corners. They're better playing man. Sometimes they play him in zone, and most of the time they get beat. So with that being said, the adjustments they made going into the second half, you saw the lack of production for Justin Jefferson. I think he only had 2 catches for 12 yards, and when they needed him the most, he did not show up. When they needed that offensive drive to march down the field and make it a game, potentially take it back, they went 3 and out. So the defense being where it is complements the offense very well, because there are going to be some growing pains over the next few weeks with Baker in the offense. I can feel it. It's hasn't happened yet. May not happen this week, but we're going to get there.
Well, it's you know, because the prognosis coming out of training camp was not pretty. I mean, you saw the videos, and then to have Baker come out against the Vikings and perform the way that he did, statistically unimpressive, but efficient and mistake-free. No interceptions, no fumbles, no mistakes whatsoever against the Vikings. It was impressive, to say the least.
Yeah, Baker plays his best football when he doesn't have to think about what he's doing out there. You know, when you have an offensive system that keeps him fluid, keeps the tempo, not high tempo, they don't have to go no huddle all the time, but, you know, just keep things consistent. I mean, short, consistent games are going to do dividends. For the Bucs, you know, the run game was definitely not where it should be for a team that has said that they want to lean on the run, but it wasn't a bad start. Over 70 yards on the ground rushing, which compared to where they were last year, historically bad running game in 2022 for the Buccaneers. And it's an incredibly young running back room, but I would like to see the run get started a little bit early. But, you know, Baker settled in that second half, and you saw it. You saw it in the offensive production. You saw him play better. You saw him trust his offensive line a little bit more. You saw the Bucs get some more chance to, you know, play action rollout around the corner, get him throwing outside of the numbers, because that's where he plays well too. The Bucs now have a quarterback who has the ability to scramble a little bit and show you some more on a play action rollout. So again, I think Baker plays his best ball, obviously, when the run game works. But, you know, when Canales is calling the game exactly the way he did in that second half after seeing what didn't work in the first half, I think that's going to lead to some long-term success. And like you alluded to, Baker, when he plays well, he doesn't have to be a superhero. He doesn't have to throw 40, 50 touchdowns a year. He just has to not turn the ball over. He has enough weapons, even with, you know, the post-Tom Brady era, as people like to call it. He has enough weapons on this offense in Tampa Bay to be a game manager and potentially win games. But again, one of the things I would like to see get better is that run game early on, because the first half was rough. They weren't doing a whole lot.
Well, my friend, I tell you that you've come to the right place if you're looking to improve your running game. because Aaron Jones ate the Bears' lunch all day long because his offensive line manhandled our defensive line for the majority of that football game. On the opening drive for Green Bay, he gashed the Bears 8 yards here, 7 yards there, that kind of thing. And then he kind of disappeared for the rest of the first half. And it was like, where's Aaron Jones? Where's Aaron Jones? And they bring him back 104 yards and 2 touchdowns later. We know where Aaron Jones is. It went from 10-6 at halftime to 24-6 halfway through the third quarter and was over after that, with the way that we were playing on offense, which was, I don't know, conservative or scared or whatever it was that the Bears were trying to do that was flat out just not working. If you're looking for help with your run game, the Bears are what the doctor ordered. If what we saw on Sunday is any indication as to what you can look forward to.
Yeah, and the Bucs are putting a lot of stock into second-year running back Rachaad White. He was, a rotational guy behind Leonard Fournette last year. Got some carries and looked good. Had a lot of moments that led me to believe this guy can get more carries and continue to grow as a running back. But he is the running back one in Tampa until he's not at this point. And with the inexperience that you have, your running back 2 is Sean Tucker, who is an undrafted free agent from Syracuse. And then your running back 3 is Chase Edmonds, who is a veteran, but he's not going to, take over the game by any means, I don't think. So with that being said, the Bucs want to see him hit that next level because week 1 he didn't. Like he was, I think, 17 carries for 40-something yards, only 2.3 yards per carry, which he ended up finishing like 40 yards below expectation, which I think is kind of a dumb stat, but people think it's a negative thing to tack onto his week 1 performance, but he just needs to make that big play. Like what he was missing in that first half was an offensive line that was cohesive enough to start opening up holes because he's a north-south runner. The Bucs are just going to hand the ball to Rachaad White and send him right up the A-gap. That's just how it is. You're going to see more of the outside zone stuff when it comes to Chase Edmonds or Sean Tucker when they get in the game. They're a little more explosive around the edge. But for Rachaad White, they are still waiting to see that one big 20, 30, 40-yard run. And I do think we get that against Chicago. But the longest run for the Buccaneers Sunday in that week 1 win was 6 yards by Rachaad White. So they're going to be looking for more production, and I think it's going to have to happen early in the game. The Bucs are going to commit to the run for another week in a row, but if the offensive line comes out fresh and Chicago is as fatigued on the D-line as you make it seem with their run defense, we'll see what that first half holds, but I think it's going to be another week of committing to the run and looking to see what Rachaad White can do.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much fatigue as it is our defensive coordinator is incompetent. Because we're seeing the same things going wrong with a so-called improved roster. The expectation for the Bears last year wasn't high. It was definitely somewhat of a tank year, or we started out the year wanting to win as many games as possible, and then saw that where the season was going, and then Ryan Poles started selling off assets and acquiring picks and things like that. But now we sign Andrew Billings. We have, Justin Jones. We go out and sign Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards to improve the second level of our linebacking core. We go out and get, better pass rushers, including Ngakoue, who did get a sack against Green Bay on Sunday. And yet we're still seeing the same problems. We're getting gashed up the middle where we're supposed to be bigger, faster, stronger on the defensive line. And, if you guys, I'll say this. We're the best team in the league on first and second down, but we're probably the worst team in the league on third down. And it doesn't matter what the down and distance is, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 15. As long as your offensive line is getting their job done, Baker will have the time to find Mike Evans. Not only will he find Mike Evans open, he'll find Mike Evans in a hole where there'll be a 10-yard radius between him and the next closest defender. We saw Green Bay do it over and over and over again. And despite our improved roster from 2022, we're still seeing the same thing. So it's got to come down to scheme and to coaching if you're seeing the same problems with better talent. So, if as long as your offensive line is getting the job done up front, you guys are going to be able to find success against the Bears.
Well, an offensive line is another question mark the Bucs had coming into this year. It's pretty much all 5 new starters. Robert Hainsey is the only guy that started last season at the same position. Tristan Wirfs making the jump from right tackle to left tackle. He's been fine. Week 1, he looked a lot better than I thought he would. So let's hope this transition stays as smooth as it has been. Left guard, you got Matt Filer, who again is a veteran signing. He wasn't an all-pro, which is why he was available as late as he was, but he is starting material. Robert Hainsey, his 3rd year, 2nd year starting at center. And then your right guard is the rookie Cody Mauch, who actually, hats off to Cody Mauch. He was on the injury report with a back injury 2 days before the Vikings game, came in, played 100% of the snaps. His first NFL start. He's a dog, so I'm happy to see him out there. Big ginger guy as well, so you know, we love all the reinforcements. And then at right tackle is the biggest question mark on the line. That is Luke Gedeke, who did get some starting time at the left guard position last season, but he was pulled. He was just bad. He was so bad that they pulled him after 4 or 5 games. They threw Nickel Everett in there, and they called it a day. Now, this guy is a mid-round draft pick for Tampa Bay, so obviously they have some stock in him, and he's going to be your starting right tackle until he's not. But he struggled with Danielle Hunter last Sunday. I mean, the Bucs are facing some premier pass rushers over the first few weeks of the season. You mentioned Yannick Ngakoue. Next week, they have... I should know who they have. I'm drawing a blank here. Week 4, they have the Saints, so they got Cam Jordan.
Right.
Week 3, why? Hold on. We can't get past this. This is going to drive me insane. I have the schedule.
Yeah.
This is going to drive me nuts. Week 3. Here we go. Week 3, Tampa Bay. This is so unprofessional. Week 3, they got the Eagles. That's why I couldn't remember, because I don't want to. Monday Night Football, they got the Eagles. They're going to be facing, that defensive line. So just another test early on in the season. But, Luke Gedeke is going to be interesting to watch. Hopefully he bounces back this week. But the consistency along that inexperienced offensive line is going to be something to watch, because they were serviceable week 1. But, these younger guys, these inexperienced offensive linemen, they can stopgap and they can play well. They can play well for 2 or 3 games, but can they play well for 4 or 5 or 6, 7 weeks in a row, taking 100% of the offensive snaps? That's yet to be determined, but in a better place than some people thought they would be.
Yeah, I'm a fantasy football hater. I'm more of a pick'em guy, and over the years, I've learned that the 2 toughest weeks to make picks for are week 1 and week 2, because week 1 you're basing all of your picks on what you know about these teams from last year, and then week 2 you're basing your picks on what happened week 1. Yeah. And we found out the hard way in most cases that week 1 can be a very fluky week. At times. And I am praying, in fact, that week 1 was a gigantic fluke for the Bears and that we're going to show up. And I know I've been playing the pessimist during this conversation, but it's just the overwhelming disappointment that we had watching that game go the way that it did. We're supposed to have this improved roster. We're supposed to have a shot against Green Bay now that Aaron Rodgers is gone. And it basically looked like Rodgers and company all over again, with the way we couldn't get anything done, the way that they were able to move the ball at will against us, and they put up 38 points on us, the whole 9 yards. It was very disheartening to have to sit through. And, I'm hoping that week 2 is a rebound to prove that week 1 was a fluke for us.
It's not your fault that Jordan Love looked like a JV quarterback in training camp and OTAs over the last couple of seasons. I don't think a lot of people could have seen that coming. He did step in and play well when he needed to before. But, as a Bucs fan, I can relate to, I don't want to say your pessimism, but your realistic expectations. Because every year when you watch a bad team, it's fun for about 2-3 weeks, and then you kind of get to October, and then it's the push period where how much longer is this going to be fun? How many more weeks are we going to really be talking about staying competitive? When is this team going to show up, right? I mean, the Bucs had that issue in 2022. Every other week, we're like, hey, when is this team going to show up? Because this is not who we've seen in years prior. But the Bucs are now back in that territory of, like, it could go wrong at any moment. And I think some people who were maybe just here for the Brady years or expect a lot more from this team are going to be in for that reality check soon. But I don't blame you. Like, you keep it realistic. You have to. You have to. Because if you're the rah-rah guy on the podcast who says, hey, we're going to win 11 games this year, and then they win 5.
Yeah.
There's going to be at least a couple people who don't let you forget that.
Yeah, I was careful to stick to windows. Like, as far like, I didn't come out and say, hey, this is how many games they're going to win. It's like, they could win as little as this many. They could win as many as this many. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And so I didn't come out and say, hey, 12-5, book it.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, yeah, we could probably, I would say our floor is 6 games, maybe 7. I would say the ceiling, if everything goes right, is 11.
Yeah.
So right now we look like that floor would be, generous at this point if we come out and play 16 more games like the one that we played on Sunday. And it just has to do with, like I said, number one, this was a very highly anticipated season, this improved roster, especially on offense, getting DJ Moore. We beefed up the offensive line. So now it's just like Justin Fields is out of excuses. We got him the tools. He's raring to go. We went out and got some help on defense. So hopefully we can at least be average, if not, outstanding and everything. And then we got Green Bay week 1 without Aaron Rodgers. It's like, this would be a great way for us to make a statement that we're going to reclaim the North. And just like Ryan Poles said in his introductory press conference, we're going to take the North and not give it back, are the literal words that the man said. And here it is. Aaron Rodgers is gone. Ding dong, the witch is dead. And now it's time for us to stake claim on this division 72 hours after the Lions beat the Chiefs on national TV for the whole world to see. The so-called favorite to win the division this year. We've got a chance to make a statement against our most hated rival to snap the losing streak, because it was 8 in a row coming into the game. It's 9 now because we did not show up for Sunday, and that's what was so disheartening about it. Everything that we were waiting for, we waited all. Hell, dude, we've been waiting for this since week 1 of last year.
Yeah.
This, knowing that Poles had all of the draft picks, all of the salary cap space, and then on top, we had the number 1 pick, which we, turned into 4 draft picks and DJ Moore. It's like, it could not have gone any better for us. You know what I'm saying? And then for us to come out, DJ Moore got 2 targets for 2 catches in the second quarter. That was it. Didn't hear from him again for the rest of the ball game. And it could not have been more disappointing than it was. And the cherry on top was that it was the Packers that was doing it to us. So
I like DJ Moore. I do think he does add some legitimacy to that wide receiver room for sure. I also like Darnell Mooney. I've been high on the guy for a couple of years now. But just the absolute state of that division, the NFC North being where it is right now. You already talked about the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay departure. But Detroit coming on strong. A lot of people picking them for the division, possibly. Dan Campbell has them in a good spot, especially the upset on the road. I know it's week 1, probably going to be an outlier for Kansas City, but it's a good upset, and everybody loves that nonetheless. And then Minnesota. I know they were a 13-win team last year, but in my humble opinion, kind of fluky. They had the collapse late in the season, and what was it, like 9 or 10 of those games were decided by
one score,
yeah. I mean, if you run that back this season, some of those games are probably going to end a little bit differently. So not to say that the Vikings aren't that good of a team, but every team in the AFC North feels like it's just kind of they're either going to be or they're going to be a lot better than people think. Right? Like Minnesota, if they win 11, 12 games, I still think for them that's a year that they're going to be a lot better than people think, because a lot of the predictions I saw for them was 6 to 7 wins this year. Detroit, it could be a tough division like we saw in the NFC South last year, where your division winner has maybe 9 or 10 wins, but Detroit's a gritty team. They're going to win some games this year. And then, like you said, the Bears hopefully looking to see some more of that updated roster as the season goes on.
Yeah, we definitely need to snap out of whatever funk we were in on Sunday and definitely show up for this one. So I guess that's what kind of makes the Bears dangerous coming into this one, because they have a lot to answer for what they did. They knew that their fan base was excited about this team. They knew their fan base was excited about that game against Green Bay, and they did not show up for it. Their performance was pathetic on both sides of the ball. We couldn't get anything done no matter what we tried to do. And there was no consistency in anything that we did against Green Bay. It was just like, what the hell is this? We've been waiting 8 months for this.
Yeah.
Ever since, January, when we were literally pulling guys off the street just to fill out a roster for the Minnesota game. Here we are 8 months later. This is what we've been waiting for. This is for real. We got DJ Moore. We're ready to go. Let's see that golden arm that Justin Fields had at Ohio State. We got somebody to go deep with and all that kind of stuff. And you just didn't see it. You didn't see it. And, they do have a lot to answer for this Sunday. And hopefully they come in with that chip on their shoulder. Like, we're better than what we showed the world we were on Sunday, and hopefully take it out on you guys for a little bit and get themselves back on track to being, what they think they're the Bears and what a lot of people think that they're capable of. Nobody's saying that the Bears are contenders this year, but nobody was saying that they were going to be the team that got just raked all over the field against Green Bay on Sunday. Some people probably picked the Packers to win, but nobody picked them to dominate the Bears the way that they did.
Yeah, but when any team goes in like the Bears did last offseason, clearly they had a mission. They wanted to get some help for their QB. So when any team uses resources like that, has the offseason that they did, just that marginal improvement is what you're looking for year to year. Like you said, nobody picked the Bears to be Super Bowl contenders, but you want to see them not wind up with the number 1 overall pick. So the expectations are definitely higher than the product they showed on the field week 1. But again, you kind of hope that week 1 is an outlier for some of these teams. And I think for some teams, it's just going to take, a couple extra weeks to come on. The inexperience factor may be something to monitor depending on what their situation is. But, I think the Bears are a team that can definitely come around as the season goes on. I'm a fan of Justin Fields. I believe in him.
Yeah. Well, I said it on my NFL show when I was previewing the game yesterday that both teams are out to prove something on Sunday. The Bears are out to prove that week 1 was a fluke. The Bucs are out to prove that week 1 wasn't a fluke. That they can go out there and beat teams like Minnesota or at least what Minnesota was last year, kind of thing. A 13-4 team at home. They go on the road and they shut down this offense. That the reason that they won so many of those one-score games is because they simply outscored their opponents because their defense was atrocious, which is why they have Brian Flores instead of Ed Donatel as their offensive coordinator. You guys did the one thing, like in their 4 losses, I think they may have scored like 40 points in those 4 losses because they got beat like 40-something to 3 against the Cowboys, 38-7 or something in the rematch against Green Bay last year. When their offense was shut down, they were done. But it's like in those other games, like that Colts game, they're down 33-0 or whatever it was. They score 36 points and come back to win the game. When they beat the Giants, it was 30-something points to whatever it was. The Giants came in the 1-score game. They were able to win these 1-score games because they were able to outscore their opponents. They weren't beating many teams. They were just outscoring them because their defense wasn't stopping anyone. So, and then it's like you guys went out there and bottled up that offense, only allowed 17 points, and you only needed 20 to make the difference. And in a 1-score game, the first one of 2023, they're 0-1 as opposed to being 11-0 or something crazy like that last year. So it's a wonder what are we looking for in the defense, or what can we look forward to from that defense that was able to bottle up Kirk Cousins despite letting him throw for over 300 yards. They were able to keep the Vikings pretty much off the scoreboard for the game.
Yeah, the biggest difference for the Bucs defense headed into this year compared to years past is the youth movement they've had along the defensive line. First round pick Elijah Cansey, he played a little bit in that second drive, I think, but he was out the rest of the game, re-aggravated an injury. Probably shouldn't have played, but hopefully we see him come back at some point in the season. He still did have time to make a play, though. Logan Hall, second-year defensive tackle. Greg Gaines, the Bucs just signed from the Rams over the course of the offseason. Brought back William Golston, who is a 10-plus year vet. But Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Anthony Nelson, Shaq Barrett round out your edge rushers. Cam Gill, I think, still on the roster as well. Your linebacker core, Levante David, Devin White. I think the mission statement for the Bucs really is getting pressure on the quarterback with 4 down linemen, because that's been an issue. In 2020, the Super Bowl championship defense, as good as they weren't a very great team at getting after the quarterback without relying on the blitz. And Todd Bowles dialed back on the blitz a little bit in 2022, and I think he might want to do that again in 2023 because he wants to see what these linemen could do. You've got a big guy like Vita Vea in the middle, hopefully opening up opportunities for the more athletic players, and you've seen them used in different schematic ways, even so far this season, to where like Kalijah Cansey made his biggest play of the game last week on a stunt. Stuff like that, opening up that creative playbook that we know Todd Bowles has is going to be interesting, but I don't know how much they're going to blitz early in this game. I don't. They're going to want to coax Justin Fields into making some mistakes, because I know this is year 3 for him, correct?
What, for Fields?
Yeah.
Yeah, year number 3.
Yeah, and the Bears put a lot of faith in him. Obviously, the reinforcements going and trading away the number 1 pick to go get DJ Moore and some of these other pieces, they have a lot of faith in what he can do. But I still think in some ways he's unproven. I do think he is the type of quarterback where he can be pressured. He can just simply be coaxed into making a mistake. And whether the Bucs send Antoine Winfield Jr. on a blitz to do that, or they just rely on their front 4 and try and play more of a coverage scheme, I am curious to see what that first half looks like. Because if they have to make adjustments, they're going to do it at halftime. Don't get me wrong. And you'll see whatever more of what you need to in that second half. But I'm curious how aggressive they're going to be with the blitz. That's the big thing. Can they force Justin Fields to make mistakes just with the 4 down linemen they have? Or, the 5, counting your pass rushers, your outside linebacker, since they run this weird hybrid 3-4. But their dependency on the blitz, I think, is going to be the biggest turning point for the Bucs defense this week.
Yeah, and I hate to be the pessimist, but after the way that our offensive line performed on Sunday, where there was somebody routinely, and they were just running stunts up front. The Packers did not blitz very much against the Bears that I can recall. There was one brilliant play that Fields did where he saw Jair Alexander coming and made a great move to shake him and ended up making a play on that one. But I don't remember them sending the house after the Bears, because frankly they didn't need to. They were simply getting home running stunts and confusing this offensive line, which was a concern going into the season, because the starting 5 that we were supposed to have, number 1, did not play together at all during the preseason. Then our best offensive lineman in Tevin Jenkins goes down with a calf injury that's going to keep him out of the first 4 games because they put him on IR for it. Cody Whitehair, who went into the season as our starting center, gets a hand injury and then is moved over to left guard to cover for Tevin Jenkins. Patrick, our center, was supposed to be our starting center last year, but couldn't stay healthy, and we had to settle for Sam Mustipher, who was a walking disaster, and thankfully he's on the Baltimore practice squad right now, or wherever the hell he ended up, kind of thing. We didn't see much of Darnell Wright after the first preseason game. Nate Davis, our newly signed right guard, didn't play at all for one reason or another, whether it was some kind of personal issue or because it wasn't an injury, or at least that's what we've been able to ascertain or whatever. These guys just did not play together. And as an offensive lineman, during my playing days, it was preached to me that the offensive line is the team within the team. And as long as those guys are hot, you can pretty much guarantee that the offense is going to be fine. And that unit had not played together other than probably the 3 or 4 days of practice they had coming into the season. And it showed. It absolutely showed. There was no chemistry. They didn't know what the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. And it was a mess up front. So as long as you guys have your shit together, I think, you guys might be okay only having to send 4 to get after Fields, or at least disrupt what the Bears are trying to do.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, how do you think this game is going to go Sunday? We talk about Justin Fields, and that's kind of where I wanted to gauge your expectations for the offense. We know what the Bucs are going to try and do on defense. I still think they're going to rely on that pressure with their front four, but if they have to get creative with the blitz, then absolutely they will. But do you think the Bears are going to try and air it out, or are they going to try and maybe rely on the run game early as well?
If today's press conferences are any indication, they are absolutely going to try to get the ball downfield. Because Justin Fields had 37 pass attempts on Sunday. 3 of them were for 10 yards or more. 2 of them to Darnell Mooney, 1 of which was a 20-yard touchdown pass in the third quarter. So, they just didn't do it. With DJ Moore and Chase Claypool, who are 50-50 ball guys, we didn't even try to heave one downfield, see if they could win a jump ball situation against somebody or anything like that. Chase Claypool was sleepwalking his way through the game on Sunday. His performance was he might be a healthy scratch on Sunday based on how poorly he played. I mean, he's making that trade that Ryan Poles made for him look like one of the worst in NFL history.
Were you guys having issues? Were you guys having similar issues with him last year?
Last year, they were chalking it up to him not being familiar with the playbook, trying to learn the offense on the fly. Kind of thing, and praising the fact that he was here for the entire offseason. He's much more up to speed on what's going on. He was excited, saying that Luke Getsy was dialing up the offense to do what worked for him as a rookie, because Chase Claypool kind of took the league by storm his rookie year, and then it's kind of faded in the time because the Steelers moved him into the slot position when he was having all of his success on the outside. The Bears are going to put him back on the outside where he was having that success, in Pittsburgh, and he was really excited about it. And it's like, I don't know what the hell happened on Sunday, but DJ Moore, who's one of the more highly anticipated players we've had since we traded for Brandon Marshall, just wasn't present. Or actually, it wasn't even DJ Moore's fault, but 2 targets for 2 catches. So he got the job done when the ball went his way. But, Chase Claypool, I think, got 1 target that he dropped like on a screen pass or something like that. And, we just couldn't get anything going on offense. How do I see the game going on Sunday? Even though I've been Mr. Pessimist, I'm optimistic about the game, hoping that they will respond, that they will, bounce back, that they will fix what was wrong on Sunday, or at least improve upon it. And, I think on paper, I think the Bears are the better team, even though you don't hear a whole lot of confidence in my voice when I say that. When I was going through the schedule, looking at wins and losses, I was counting on a win in Tampa Bay. And if we were going to lose, I was probably going to blame it on the weather, that we were just beaten down by the crazy heat in Florida that time of year and everything, especially since out here in the Chicago area, it's been in the mid 60s, for the past couple of weeks. It is beautiful out here, as we get ready for the fall.
We're just getting over the hurricane weather. We had whatever that hurricane was called a couple of weeks ago come through and kind of cool things down for about a week and a half, but now we are back to standard operating procedure where it's a high of 96 degrees, 1,000% humidity, and it feels like 125. It's
I can't.
Good old Florida just before the fall.
Yeah, I can't, bro. I don't know how you guys do it day in and day out. I mean, I know you probably get used to it after a while, that it's not as big a deal as it would be, but it's like I just can't. I can't. I've literally been to Tampa one time back in 2001 in late November. It was 85 with humidity that could choke an animal to death. It was awful. Absolutely awful. It's like, it's November. When we left Illinois to come here, it was 41 degrees outside.
Yeah.
It is 85 and I can feel the air on my skin.
I'm sunburned. It's 8:30 in the morning and I've got sun poisoning. It's like our hotel was right across the street from Busch Gardens out in Tampa. And all my friends were like, we're playing a night game, so let's go to the Busch Gardens. Like, no, absolutely not. I am not going to be outside sweating my ass off for 5 hours. I was like, no way. No, I'm going to be in the AC in the hotel room watching college football. That's what I'm doing today. To hell with that. So yeah, no way. It's like, no, man, no, thank you. So, but I think we can do it. We're capable of it. Do I think? Here's the thing, and this is how I always kind of qualify it.
Do I think we can do it? Yes. Will we do it? I don't know. I think so. But in my pick'em league, I'm going to pick the Bears, but the confidence points are going to be like 1 or 2 this week. It is, confidence is not high after what we saw on Sunday. It's like they have the talent and the capability to get it done and to be better than they were. But until they do it, it's a see it to believe it kind of situation for us.
It seems like the Bears are a team the Bucs play more times than not. And whenever these teams get together, with all due respect, I feel like these last couple of years, the last 5 or 6, 7 years, whenever these teams have played, whether it's in Chicago or in Tampa, it's 1 or 2 different kinds of games. It's either close and competitive, and maybe frustrating. Maybe frustrating for both teams. Everyone remembers that, I think it was a Thursday night game, 2020, Chicago and the Bucs. Brady forgot it was 4th down. All of that good stuff. That was frustrating. That was the most frustrating game of the year. I have gone back and I have watched every single game from that 2020 season, even the losses, except for that one, and then obviously the 48-3 loss against New Orleans at home. But when it's not that kind of game, the Bucs are usually on that ass. And whenever they play in Tampa these last couple of years,
oh man,
the Bucs are usually on that ass. And I'm not saying it's going to get out of hand this Sunday. That's not at all what I'm saying. I do think with the growing pains on the offensive side of the ball for the Bucs and the fact that they are going to rely on the run game, I think it's a lower scoring affair. And I think it's close. I don't think it's going to be as close as a finish as week 1 was between the Bucs and Minnesota. Like, that really came down to it. I think this one will be shored up with about 4, 5, 6 minutes left to go. Maybe a late game interception by one team or the other. But if we're doing score predictions, then I have the Bucs winning 24 to 20. 24 to 20. I was going to say 24-17, but that's a big spread, and I think they'll keep it a close game. So 24-20. Late touchdown.
I think
Bucs
that sounds about right to me. I was thinking like 23-20 Bears. Kind of thing, very much in line with you. Like, it's probably going to be some kind of late turnover or something like that kind of, like, I think the final score will be established like with the Minnesota game. You guys took the lead with about 5 minutes to go and managed to hang on to it for the rest of the game. And it's just a matter of, somebody holding on in those last 5 minutes to come away with the win. That's why I feel like 23-20 sounds about right to me. For me, it's more the context of how the Bears play than actually winning the game. For me, like, have we shored things up so that win or lose, we look like a much better football team that might actually, have some kind of business taking the field against the Chiefs next week? Because otherwise, that's going to be an absolute bloodbath in Kansas City.
Yeah. Yeah, tough opponents in week 3 for both Chicago and Tampa Bay.
Yeah, the Super Bowl teams.
Yeah, getting both of the Super Bowl teams from last year. The Bucs playing Philly on Monday Night Football, and that will be at home in Raymond James. It is Rondé Barber enshrinement night, so they're just going to piss off Philly even more by showing highlights of that wonderful pick 6
there you go.
Championship game at halftime and showing off that beautiful Hall of Fame bust that Rondé finally got. But, it's a tough game for both of these teams, and I don't think either of them are in a position to be looking ahead to the next week. But they know that, like you said earlier, they're going out there to play with something to prove.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, in my preview on my NFL show, they both do have something to prove. The Bears are out to prove that week 1, that's not who we are. That was a fluke. We're going to show up and be the team that everyone thought we were. Coming in, and the Bucs are out to prove that week 1 wasn't a fluke, because week 1 is that fluky, that fluky week. You see it happen all the time.
Week 1 is when the Lions beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, or week 1 is the Browns dominate the Bengals 24-3.
Yeah.
Or the 49ers go on the road from the West Coast to the East Coast, play what is essentially for them a 10 a.m. game, and dominate the Steelers from the outset 30-7. Like, the Steelers never got off the bus in their home stadium against the 49ers. Now, granted, the 49ers are Super Bowl favorites this year, but you didn't expect them to run the Steelers off the field the way they did.
Yeah, the high expectations for Pittsburgh this year, too. I know the AFC North, that's going to be a tough division. But Pittsburgh has been like a team that I've seen pop up more often than not as a lot of people's AFC pick. So curious to see if they can bounce back. But that was pure domination by Brock Purdy and the Niners week 1.
Yeah, and then the Giants letting the Cowboys come into MetLife and put 40 on them and getting shut out in the I mean, it was embarrassing. Like I tweeted on Monday, I was like, you know what, guys, there's worse thing in the world to be than Bear fans. We could be rooting for the Giants now.
You could be rooting for the Jets. Not to
my God, dude.
Not to talk about New York sports, but you talk about the 40-0 beatdown on prime time, and then 24 hours later, we get just absolute tragedy for the New York Jets and in the Aaron Rodgers situation. Maybe there's been worse,
dude.
Maybe there's been worse because I don't fully understand the legacy of how bad New York sports have been over the course of history. But that's got to be like the worst 24 hours on record as far as games played for New York fans in MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, it's just been a bad year. Both the Mets and the Yankees suck this year. The Giants get a 40 burger put up on them on Sunday Night Football, national TV. Then the most highly anticipated start to a Jets season in a really long time. Like, hey, man, we've been building this roster, all this young talent. We got this great head coach and Robert Saleh. We got the missing piece. Like, if we had Aaron Rodgers last year, we're in the Super Bowl kind of thing. Yeah. Here he is, 4 plays into the season, ruptured Achilles, done for the year. We are back to Zach Wilson being our starting quarterback, which is exactly where we didn't want to be. It's brutal. So yeah, like I said, there's worse things to have been on, than a Bears fan after what happened. But they've got a lot to prove, and we'll see what happens on Sunday. I am cautiously optimistic. But as a lifelong fan of the franchise, I'm also extremely pessimistic as well. It's like the first thing that goes wrong, it's going to be like, all right, here we go. Here we go. This is it. I don't even know why I bothered watching, kind of thing. So
people abandoned ship early. They were used to it for so many years down here that like by the turn of October, people are pulling up the mock draft machine to see what they can, get the Bucs in position to do next spring. But I think for both of these teams, these are critical seasons just because the expectations coming into it. For the Bears, I know you said last year expectations are pretty low. This year things are different. For the Bucs, they took a step down as far as everyone's overall expectations. Like they don't think this is going to be a decent team. I mean, not even a halfway decent team. A lot of people think this is going to be the second worst team in the NFL without Tom Brady at quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case, but both of these teams are going to have an interesting season because when you talk to the fans, it's so divided. It's so like we're either going to win 3 or 4 games this year or we're going to win 11 and 12 and go on a playoff run. So a lot to prove with both of these young teams, but should be an exciting season the rest of the way.
Well, I mean, especially since both of our teams are in what would be considered wide open divisions.
Yeah.
This year, with Brady gone, a brand new quarterback in Carolina, Atlanta going the distance with Desmond Ridder at quarterback, Derek Carr making the move over to New Orleans. And the division winner was 8-9. Everybody else was 7-10. So it was pretty much a neck and neck division last year. And then now the Bears. It looks like the Vikings are taking a step back. The Lions taking a step up. The Packers are without Aaron Rodgers, and the Bears, did a lot of improving over the offseason. It could go either way. Like nobody's going to be surprised with how this division finishes up, no matter what. So it's one of those wide open years for both of our division. So it is going to be exciting the rest of the way to see how it all shakes out.
Agreed.
So, Rhett, thanks so much for coming back on. I appreciate you joining us and helping me talk through this very traumatic week 1 loss. And I know that I've been, boo-hooing my way through this, but I do think the Bears can win the game. The level of confidence on will they win it? We'll see. We'll see. I think they can. Will they? I think so, but I won't be surprised after the way they played on Sunday if they come away 0-2 on this thing. So.
Hey, it's only week 2, man. We got a lot of football left, and good, bad, or indifferent. I'll take a bad day of NFL football over anything else at this point.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And if we lose, the number one reason for that loss will be the orange helmets and the orange jerseys, because that is a god awful uniform.
What do you before we go? Just a little bonus question here. What do you make of that? I don't think it's official, but have you seen the mock-ups of a white helmet?
It depends, because I've seen some that put the bear head on the side,
which
no, thank you.
No,
Yeah.
you're opposed to the bear head logo on the helmet.
Opposed 100%.
Okay.
It's the white helmet configuration that I like is you keep the C on the side, orange C navy trim, as opposed to orange C white trim on the navy helmet, navy face mask, no stripes, because every configuration I keep seeing, they put stripes on the helmet. We've never had a stripe on the helmet ever. No need for the stripe. White helmet, orange C, navy trim, navy face mask, white from head to toe. I'm all about it. The polar bear look, count me in.
Yeah,
count me in.
A lot of people don't like the unitard uniforms as far as red on red, white on white, primary color, but I love it. I will say
it depends.
The Bucs white on white uniform, while it is sharp, it's probably my least favorite of what we have. I think our red jersey, white pants is the cleanest combo that we have, but they don't bust it out very often. They usually save that for preseason or like one game a year. But we also get the return of the creamsicle against the Lions later this year, so I'm pumped up for that. But
yeah, I was hoping that they might bust that out against the Bears, the old NFC Central rival kind of thing, being week 2 and everything. But I guess we're the ones that go out there and look like gooftards in the orange uniforms instead. So looking forward. And the only thing is that I'm optimistic, because then that's, if we're going to do, we did one on the road and one at home last year. So at least we got one of those 2 appearances out of the way early.
Yeah.
Just get it done, as opposed to last year, they did it twice in 3 weeks. So yeah, that was a rough stretch. So
yeah, I'm curious to see if the Bucs make it around the horn with their uniforms this year. They've got, at least the ones that I know of, they did wear red on white in the preseason, so maybe check that off of the list. But they got white jersey, white pants, white jersey, pewter pants. Sometimes they wear that at home. Mostly they wear that at home early in the year. Then the creamsicle, and then, of course, the classic red and pewter. And then the all pewter, which I forget about now that we have the creamsicle back. A lot of people really like the all pewter, but I don't know. I would rank it maybe one above the white on white for me. It's not my favorite alternate we've had.
Well, when it comes to the so-called color rush, and thank God that's something that went away, but like that was kind of like a color rush uniform. That one would rank high on the color rush power ranking,
right?
For me,
right.
It was a good look as far as color rush standards are concerned, which the bar is not high for color rush. But as far as the other uniform configurations, I'd probably put it somewhere on the bottom half for you guys, the pewter from head to toe. And you brought this up against the right person, because I am a self-professed uniform snob.
I love it.
I always keep track of this kind of thing, like the Lions and that blue helmet that they're breaking out this year. Number one, love the color. Yeah,
but what are we doing with the logo?
The logo.
What are we doing?
What the hell is the logo?
Why
I understand.
Put that on the helmet?
Yeah, it's an anniversary logo. I get it, but it looks like a 5-year-old drew that in finger painting class or something like that. It's awful, absolutely awful. And they're breaking it out with their all gray uniforms. So they're going to look like a lollipop with this blue helmet and then this bland gray uniform underneath it. I was like, no, that doesn't work at all. So
there's just certain things that work, certain things that don't. I think gray is a very slippery slope. There's too much that can go wrong with a gray uniform. Okay, last uniform comparison I'll throw out there. I know we're on a good topic here, but the University of Tennessee just dropped. They have these gray, like smoky gray uniforms, but they're a callback to some old uniforms that they had before with an orange shoulder lining. But it doesn't go all the way to the edge of the shoulder pad. It stops right at the stitching, and it looks ridiculous. I don't know if you've seen those, but some of the worst college football unis I've seen this year. And Tennessee usually has good ones.
Don't get me started on college football. Like the University of Oregon. They've played 110 games and had 110 different uniform configurations in that time. Whereas the best team in the country, or traditionally anyway, Alabama, same 2 uniforms that they do not stray from, and they're just one national championship after another. Or even the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah,
they don't get fancy with the uniforms, and they're ones hoisting the trophy 2 years in a row. So I don't know. Maybe think about that a little bit. Spend a little more time on football, a lot less time on how the bird wing is going to go on the helmet, or all that kind of nonsense.
The best kind of uniform is one that you can set up and not change for 60 years. Look at Chicago.
Yes.
The Bucs made the mistake. They made the pewter power transition in 1996. Never should have gone away from it. And they can tell you that because they literally went back to fix what wasn't broken after they just completely ruined the Bucs uniform in 2014. So that was a dark period, but I'm glad
with
they
the
went
digital
back to,
clock numbers that they had on the,
God.
it's I absolutely hated that.
I mean, hey,
uniform,
the color rush for those uniforms, I did like. I know the alarm clock uniforms were there, but they had like a pewter number and the red on red. I thought that was sharp, but the rest of those uniforms were hideous. Just absolutely embarrassing. A low point for the aesthetic of the franchise.
Indeed. Not to mention they blew up the flag on the helmet.
Yeah, it was way
twice
too big.
the size. Way
too big. Chrome face mask, which I didn't hate, but it wasn't a good look with the rest of the uniform.
Yeah. So anyway, sounds like we could do a podcast on this. It was like, hey, it's the weekly uniform, show.
Yeah, let's run it down.
There you go. But Rhett, thanks so much, man. This was a great time. Where can we find the Cannon Fire online?
Anywhere you download a podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and then you can also watch with video on YouTube, youtube.com/Cannon Fire Podcast. And then social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast.
Awesome. Rhett Matthews, thanks so much for helping us out. Good luck on Sunday, at least. Hopefully everyone comes back healthy, win or lose.
Thank you, Larry. Good talking to you, buddy.
And there the cannons come. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.